The Logan 650 Framer's Edge mat cutter features a 40-inch baseboard, a hinging guide rail, and a laminated board surface. It has a dual-purpose cutting head that cuts bevel on one side and cuts straight on the other. Also included is a 27-inch squaring arm, a flush cut squaring arm, and a parallel mat guide that rides in aluminum channels that are held in with machine screws. Finally, 3 production stops. To install the mat guide, first press the aluminum channels round end in first into the open channels on the board. Stand the baseboard on its edge and insert the machine screws from the bottom of the board to secure the aluminum channels in place. To install the parallel mat guide, see that both knobs are loosened 3 or 4 turns and drop both sides into the aluminum channels at the same time. To install the squaring arm, first remove both screws in the squaring arm slot. One screw is securing an item called a lineup tool. Place the 27-inch squaring arm into the baseboard. Align the holes in the squaring arm with the holes in the board and reinstall the screws. But don't tighten. Now use the lineup tool. This allows the slot in the baseboard to be aligned perfectly with the slot in the squaring arm. Now tighten the screws fully. Remove the lineup tool before using the machine, but save it for later use. To install the blade in the bevel cutting side, first loosen the blade holding knob and insert one Logan number 269 blade into the blade holder as far back as it will go. Retighten the blade holding knob. To install the blade in the straight cut side, again loosen the blade holding knob and insert one Logan number 269 blade into the blade holder as far back as it will go and retighten the knob. To cut a 3-inch border mat, align your parallel mat guide to the 3-inch mark and tighten both knobs down. Always use a backing sheet. Insert a mat board blank into the machine color side down against the mat guide and down against the squaring arm. Use a pencil to draw lines along the left edge of the guide rail. Draw all 4 lines. Slide the bevel cutting head back until the green dot indicator aligns perfectly over the drawn pencil line at the top of the mat board. Rotate the blade fully in and cut back until the red dot on the indicator lines up with the lower drawn pencil line. Rotate the blade out, lift the guide rail, and continue. After the 4th cut, the window will drop free, leaving you with a perfectly beveled 3-inch bordered mat. Notice the perfect 90-degree corners and the bevel cut edges. To cut the same 3-inch bordered mat, again adjust your parallel mat guide to the 3-inch mark on the scale and tighten both knobs in place. Again, always use a backing sheet. Install the top movable production stop onto the scale arm. Slide it to the 3-inch mark and tighten in place. Now install the bottom production stop onto the guide rail, and again locate the 3-inch mark and tighten in place. Now insert a mat board blank, color side down, under the guide rail, against the mat guide, and down against the squaring arm. To make a production stop cut, use your index finger on the spring tab until it makes contact with the edge of the mat board. Insert the blade, allow the spring tab to release upwards, and pull to your bottom stop. Repeat this process on all 4 sides. After the 4th cut, the window will drop free of the mat board, and you will have a perfectly beveled 3-inch bordered mat. To make a straight cut on the framer's edge, first remove all the production stops from the machine. Remove the backing sheet and the parallel mat guide. To use the squaring arm production stop, install it on the far end of the rail and slide inward until it aligns along the size number that you want to cut. Place a blank piece of mat board under the guide rail against the production stop you just set in place. To activate the straight cutting head, rotate forward on the blade holder into its locked cutting position and pull straight back. Release the cutting head to its neutral position after the cut, and it will downsize the mat board to the size you had set. The side of the straight cutting head has additional depth settings for cutting 3/16 foam board and 3/8" foam board. The bevel cutting head also has an additional blade depth setting used for cutting 8-ply mat board. To switch from a 27-inch squaring arm to the flush cut squaring arm, first remove the screws that hold the 27-inch arm in place. Install the flush cut squaring arm and reuse the line-up tool to again line up the slots in the board with the slots in the squaring arm. Reinstall the machine screws. Set the line-up tool aside and you're ready to use the machine again.